is being live streamed and can be viewed by the general public via Council's Facebook page and is later uploaded to Council's website. By participating in and addressing those present at the meeting, you consent to any information you disclose, including any personal information or sensitive information, being recorded and uploaded to the website. We'll begin with an acknowledgement of country, and I'll ask Councillor Moyne if she would please read our acknowledgement today.
Thank you, Mayor. We begin by acknowledging the Eastern Maar people as the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay our respects to their elders past and present. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today.
Thank you. Excuse me, Councillor Taylor, I'll invite you to read the brief.
Mighty God, we humbly beseech your blessing on the Council, direct and prosper its deliberations for the welfare of the people of the Moyne Shire. Amen.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. I don't know if we have any appointments today, Mr. Epstein. Councillors, are there any conflicts of interest that anyone would like to declare? There being none, I'll move to the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on 28th January 2025. I'll call for a movement to confirm those minutes are a true and accurate record, please. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Seconded, please. Councillor Lockett, thank you. Is there any dissent there? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried 7-0. It's me. Well, move straight away to our public participation today. And I'll call on a motion to suspend our standing orders so that we can hear our public participants. Thank you, Councillor Murray. Seconded by Councillor Lockett. All those in favour? That is carried 7-0. Thank you very much. We have got some participants online today and some people in the room with us. So I'll begin by inviting Louise Burris and Daniel McLean, and I believe they're both online. So we'll invite them into the virtual meeting space, please.
Are we meant to be talking? Oh, I don't know.
You are online. We just can't see you just yet.
Oh, yep. Can you hear us at all? Or?
Yeah, we can absolutely hear you.
So,
just one moment, if you wouldn't mind. We'll just sort out the technology at our end so that we can see you. There we go.
Start your video, okay. Try. Oh, yep. Hello.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Burris and Mr. McLean. We'll begin with you, please. So just a reminder that you have a total of 5 minutes to present to council today. After that time, we'll open it up for questions from councillors. So the floor is yours.
Dear councillors and members of the public, on behalf of myself, Louise and our 7 children, as major landholders of future growth land in the C69 scheme, we hold grave concerns over the future of proposed residential land in the C69 plan. Councillors worked for close to a decade to make a future plan for the town. We are against Bamstone's suggested 500 metre buffer for the following reasons. Housing. The supply of houses for sale and affordable building land is in short supply. The recently released revised flood levels have only made this worse. Lot 82 on our farm, subject to Bamstone's buffer, is rural living zoned and free from any flood overlays at all. Bamstone's buffer would take out nearly the entire 42-acre lot. We were hoping our land at Lot 81 and 82 would give families the opportunity to live on a larger lot in the town and the possibility of further subdivision into the future when other land supply is running low. We believe taking out housing land with this buffer will have reverse effects on industry, as in no houses for workers equals no workers for industry. With a major subdivision in town recently being approved near a pharmaceutical/chemical plant without a 500 metre buffer, we believe Bamstone's site poses significantly less risk to neighbouring houses. A chemical spill or a fire could be catastrophic, but they obviously must have protocol in place to avoid this, and any off-site emissions at Bamstone's site should be controlled on-site through proper protocol as well. The MPAA report states there is a recently constructed dwelling in the 500-metre zone to the west. We're assuming no objection to the dwelling was lodged by Bamstone, as it has been built in the zone. There are also 2 tenanted houses on Bamstone's site, which must be taken into account. Acoustics. After reading the acoustic report supplied by Bamstone's, one of the louder areas of Bamstone's site was the concrete plant. We believe this is not commercially operated anymore, and as an internet search of BAMIC states it's permanently closed, and a search of Port Fairy Garden Supplies mentions nothing of concrete services on their website. Although it is not professionally done, we took several decibel readings over several weeks at different locations around Port Fairy, including our proposed subdivision, Bamstone site, both Hamilton Road and Blackwood Road, Awabi Court and Sun Farmer. Although it's of no use in a legal sense, the readings we took and logged gave us reassurance that Bamstone is no louder than the other industries in town, noting that highway traffic noise was the loudest at most places. The economy. The protection of one business, a priority of the town's progression now and into the future, is a short-sighted approach. Bamstone states they employ 47 staff between factory and quarries. The potential economic windfalls of opening up more affordable land in the town far outweigh this, we believe. The jobs now and in the future that could be created for investing in residential go on and on. Builders, plumbers, electricians, civil and earthworks, waste management, landscapers, teachers, nurses, retail workers, the list goes on. Louise grew up 5th generation in Port Fairy, and our children are 6th generation. The land has been farmed and held onto because they all have loved the land and love Port Fairy. Therefore, we want other families to be able to love it and live here too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McLean. I will open it up to councillors for questions, please. Do we have any? Okay. Oh, yes.
No, I was waiting for others. First question is, Mr. McLean, you mentioned a 500-metre buffer. Do you have a fallback position on that?
Well, preferably no buffer if I had to choose, Jim, but I'll be honest, a 10 to that would probably be appropriate as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. And follow-up question, today's recommendation is to send it off to the minister. Like, the Shire's in no position to make a decision, and at the end of the day, Shire won't be in a position to make a decision. You realise that it's all up to the minister if this goes ahead?
I do.
Right, okay, no, just wasn't sure. So thank you for that. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, any final questions from councillors? If not, we'll thank you both, Ms. Burris and Mr. McLean. We appreciate your presentation to council today.
Thank you
very much.
So our next public participant in relation to item 2.1, I should have referred to that earlier. Our presenters today are all speaking on the item 2.1 in our agenda, the proposed planning scheme amendment, Bamstone Buffer Area Overlay. And we'll welcome Ms. Emma Conway. As with our earlier... Hi there, Ms. Conway. As with our earlier presenters, you'll have 5 minutes and we'll give you a warning at 4 minutes if we need to.
Thank you very much. Okay. Dear council members, residents of Moyne Shire and members of the public, my name is Emma Conway, formerly Burris, and as a prominent landholder in Port Fairy, I wish to express my concerns regarding the potential changes to the C69 amendment, specifically the proposed 500-metre buffer on rural living lots 81 and 82, which would limit this area to primary production only. Given that this area is one of the last directions for growth in Port Fairy, I am deeply concerned about the long-term impact of this change on the future of Port Fairy. Port Fairy is currently experiencing a rental crisis with declining school enrolment, struggling businesses, and many areas rendered undevelopable due to the recent flood overlay plan. In light of rising sea levels and the growing demand for long-term rentals and desirable land, limiting development here would be detrimental to the council's future vision. By developing this land for housing, we would create jobs and industry. Builders, electricians, plumbers, landscapers, draftspeople, town planners and council members, providing lasting economic benefits of Port Fairy. As a landholder of Lot 79, which has been affected by the flood overlay, I recognise Lot 82 is not subject to this overlay. This makes it potentially the most desirable land for future development. While I am not opposed to including a buffer zone to protect Bamstone and any future businesses, I believe we must take a long-term balanced approach. A solution can be found that protects Bamstone's operations while allowing for quality housing development that benefits both residents and businesses. This would create opportunities for people to even work for Bamstone without having to leave Port Fairy in search of employment, as so many are currently forced to do due to lack of housing. The Council of Port Fairy must consider the bigger picture. If this amendment is passed, it could lock us into a course of action from which we may not be able to recover. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your presentation today, Ms. Moyne.
Thank you.
Councillors, do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you. Hello, Emma.
Hi, how are you?
Yes, well, thank you. Just with regard to your presentation, you did mention towards the end that you did foresee a solution to this issue. Did you have more to say about that?
I believe that there's already a 100-metre buffer in place from the report I read. So, doing that, and also creating housing that's to a specification, like certain to restrict any noise pollution and stuff. So the Bamstone business can be won't be affected and residents won't be affected.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Answers there? No? If not, thank you for your presentation and your time today, Ms. Conway. We appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I'm now going to call on Steve Myers, MPAA Studio, on behalf of Bamstone Proprietary Limited, which is Cheryl, Michael and Sam Steele. Welcome, Mr. Myers.
Very much. Thank you, Council.
We'll start the call. I think you've been through this before, so you'll have 5 minutes and we'll give you a 4-minute warning if we need to.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, councillors. There's a few new faces around the table. So I'm Steve Myers. I run a planning consultancy in Warrnambool, and I've been working with Bamstone on a number of projects, including this buffer application. Bamstone will be known to you, but let's, for the record, just talk about Bamstone. They're a family-owned operation. They're about to celebrate, or are celebrating, their 50th year. They established in 1975. They're located on Hamilton Port Fairy Road, and their site's around about 9 hectares in the area in zoned industrial. Their operations include dimension stone processing, concrete batching, and just logistical operations. They've recently secured a major contract with Melbourne Airport, which continues to drive investment in modern plant and expansion and investment. And as submitters have mentioned, they employ 47 people, and the plant supports key infrastructure projects and projects of state significance. Just an overview of what we've requested. The proposal, as outlined in Agenda Item 2.1, seeks to apply a buffer area overlay to manage potential off-site impacts from Bamstone's industrial activities. It's recognised that industrial sites that are well operated and with best practices can have unintended consequences or issues such as noise, and that's what this overlay is about. Bamstone's operations currently comply with all regulations, and the buffer overlay is proposed to manage future developments that might be affected by unexpected or unintentional disturbances. The primary risk is the land to the south, and that's the land in the rural living zone. That risk comes from dwellings could be constructed there today as of right, and then there's also risks in terms of subdivision. I might just note in relation to C69, it's been raised by previous presenters. C69 set this area up, all land to the south, as a long-term growth corridor. It coupled it with some policies in the scheme which said discourage subdivision to avoid fragmentation of that area, to buy council some time to do further strategic planning at some point in time. It'd be that some point in time that you would imagine or expect you would resolve buffers or separation requirements to industry. The buffer overlay is also invited through the planning scheme. So while the planning scheme has a nominal 100-metre policy buffer, it also, at the back end of the planning scheme, says we should be investigating and looking at buffers that are required to industry, including BAMstone. So it's on that basis of the planning scheme inviting the buffer overlay in this application that the application's been made. The planning report by the officers talks around a planning practice note, which includes several steps. Some of those steps have already been undertaken. So steps 1 through to 3 have been progressed. Those steps talk around, ensuring that BAMstone's compliant. A buffer overlay can't be applied to land or adjoining land to make non-compliance okay. So if a plant's compliant, as this is, what you'll find is in terms of situations where there can be unintended noise or other impacts that may happen at certain times. And in terms of BAMstone's plant, those occurrences or risks occur in the early evening and early morning when the plant's operating beyond 6 o'clock and around about 6 a.m. So that's where there's risk for non-compliance occurring. And again, presenters have mentioned potential mitigation options being you could construct a dwelling.
That's 4 minutes.
Thanks. So you could construct a dwelling so you don't hear noise inside, but the noise measurements are always taken in house. So that's where the compliance comes into play. So what we've essentially asked for is council to commence a process in relation to the application of this overlay. That process enables affected landowners to have a say and, if need be, tested through an independent process. It'll obviously then come back to council at some point in time. And that's effectively what the application is today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Myers. Councillors, questions? Yes, Councillor Murray.
I guess I just have a question around any of the buffer overlays that have been included both in your report and ones that I've had a look at myself seem to be quite radial, circular. This one seems specifically targeted at those blocks. Is that purely from a zoning perspective? Because I noticed, I actually did a little drive-by and parked out there the other day. The wind is blowing in a certain direction, noise carries, and it's carrying, I guess, away from those blocks. So I just sort of wanted to understand why it's directly sort of targeted there.
You kind of look around the plant. You've got farming zone land to the west, so there's just less risk of intensification of dwellings. Land to the north is owned by BAMstone, so they've sort of bought that buffer, if you like. Then as you head to the east, you've got industrial zone land immediately to the east, and that's not a threat for sensitive users. And there's a pocket of rural living land that's north of that industrial estate and adjoins the one water treatment plant. And that site's kind of in a double over buffer, if you like. It's got the treatment plant buffer and a BAMstone buffer. And that rural living area has a different minimum lot size. So again, the risk is less. So at the moment, the buffer overlay focuses on where the greatest risk is, and that's to the south. Yeah.
Through you. So I wonder, I did read through all of the documentation, but I'm not a planner. So I guess I just wonder the reasoning around the 500 metres, as opposed to, I guess, the in-policy buffer that's currently at 100. I wondered why. I feel like half a kilometre is quite a long way, so I wanted to understand that a bit better.
Yeah, so it's up to roughly 500 metres, so it does vary in distance. And there's a plan in there, and it's not a nice, neat circle, which sometimes you see with buffers. And it's following a 40 decibel modelled line, and that's why. So the modelling actually, I think it's a plan maybe in the council report, which shows quite a jagged line, and that's the modelled line. And then we'll just smooth that out to just make it a bit more practical. But effectively what that's doing is it's following the line where there would be non-compliance, particularly in the early evening and early morning times.
Any questions? Councillor
Yeah,
Lucas?
yeah, thank you. I suppose our two planning ladies and Mr. Myers, the industrial land to the east of Bamstone, now it hasn't been developed yet, but is there a buffer on that land? Was there a buffer put on that when the C69 went into play?
Ms. McNamara?
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Lucas. The buffer applies to uses that are currently underway if the land's vacant but zoned that way, the buffer doesn't apply. There's a use on there, it will apply to that.
Right, so just sitting there at the moment, if that was to be developed, any use would then be, the buffer will be determined on that use. Right. So if you wanted to start a business that needed well, it's straight over the road from lots 81, 82. So if you wanted to start a business that had a 200-metre buffer, you really couldn't. Because the houses were already there, so you can't put in a retrospective buffer. So that would restrict what could be used or what industry could go on that industrial land.
Is that a question for Ms. McNamara?
So anyone can answer it.
Through you, Mayor. I guess it's hard to know until that land's applied for and any development comes and assessing it on its merits at that time. So it's
Right,
hard
so-
for us to tell.
Well, so thinking forward, it's industrial one. It gets developed. I come along and I want to put in an industry, but my industry needs a 200-metre or 300-metre buffer. I'll identify where my shed goes, do me 300 metres, and if it crosses a road into the rural living zone, then I can't go forward with my business. That's the way I see it. Is that correct? Because the buffer goes with the business, and if the business can't have a buffer,
Probably a hypothetical question that we
I
may
think it's very
relevant.
pertinent.
Can I answer the question
Yeah.
for you without answering the question? Anywhere where you've got industry and you have houses, it makes it difficult to develop industry. So if you've got housing nearby to industry, you do need to be really careful if you're a new industry coming in, and it can limit the use of industrial.
That's right.
That's a very broad
That's right. Whatever industry comes in
Yeah.
has to fit in with whatever the buffer is.
with the houses that are around.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Myers? If not, thank you very much for your presentation and your time today. You're welcome to stay and as we cover this matter. But before we do that, I'll call for a motion to resume standing orders. Thank you, Councillor Lockett. Seconded, Councillor Murray. All those in favour? That is carried. We'll move to item 2.1, proposed planning scheme amendment, Bandstone buffer area overlay. And I'll invite our Director of Environment, Economy and Place, Ms. Jodie McNamara, to please present this to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, we've received a request from a private donor to consider a proposed buffer around a property at 204 to 234 to Port Fairy Road in Port Fairy. The point in time of this request is for council to consider whether it's entering into a planning scheme amendment process, which has its own, I guess, steps following that. Council officers have provided a recommendation along those lines. There is some information that officers have identified as required to be submitted prior to sending off to the Minister, and that relates primarily to a practice note which deals with managing buffers for land use compatibility. The Environment Protection Authority's views would also be sought. There's a recommendation there. Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate that, Ms. McNamara. I'll invite questions from the council team. Councillor Murray, thank you, Mayor.
Dr. Mara, can I ask, if this process were to get underway today, can I ask what happens to the land currently? So for the owners of that land, Mr. Myers mentioned they have an as of right right to build a dwelling. Can they still do that while this process is underway?
Mayor, thank you for the question. It's our understanding that yes, there will be, if there was a permit trigger for any future development, bear into mind or consider an amendment that may be in progress. But up until exhibition stage and subsequent submissions, it climbs in, I guess, profile on what we have to consider.
Through you, Mayor. Sure. I have it written down in here. Will we as a council, we still have opportunity, I guess, to look at this, to look at any submissions of, I guess we're just voting today on whether we progress it up to the minister. We are not, this isn't a vote of, I guess, that council is approving of this or in favour of this. Would we still have an opportunity to look at this down the track? You can find the question in there.
Thank you for the question. Future steps within a planning scheme amendment process by council to have input and decision-making points, and that is where submissions would be considered. They would be brought into council laws, whether or not to appoint an independent planning panel, and then ultimately when a planning panel is convened and a report to it, there's another decision-making time. Then at any point in time, the amendment documentation is made available for yourselves or anyone.
Questions, Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mayor. Bear with me while I try and get my questions together. I've got a few here. I'll try to get them out. Forest land blocks 81 and 82, they would, correct me if I'm wrong, need to apply to the minister to have that rezoned. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question. If the forest is, if they sought to rezone that land, there's a separate strategic planning process that would be required to be undertaken, and a similar request to this that we're considering today.
And follow up, would this application for the zone, or the buffer, would that kind of trigger this work? Because it sounds like to go forward, this work's got to happen either way, whether it's to have the buffer or whether it's to have the land rezoned, and it's kind of, would it almost speed up that process? Were they two separate processes?
Through you, Mayor. It would be a separate process. The matter under consideration today relates to the process to apply a buffer area overlay. It doesn't include any other land rezoning requests.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, if not, we do have a detailed officer recommendation before us, but before I call for a motion, I'll just note that there is a small typographical error. Point 3 in the recommendation then leads to point 5. It should lead to point 4. Just a small typo there. So that is the recommendation before us. I'm seeking a mover, please.
Yeah, why not?
Councillor Dukas, thank you very much. And a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Voss. Councillor Dukas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, suppose this is one of these recommendations that, although confusing to some, I think we've done enough work through workshops and the briefing this morning to allay any fears that anybody might have about due process and what the applicant, the barristers, and even community members' rights are. I'll move the motion in support, and if I can, where did I put it? On page 41 under consultation, if I can read that out, I think that covers everything. If the planning scheme amendment gains authorisation, which is what we're doing now, going to the minister, but then the minister has to say yes or no. That's not up to us. And it's not to say there's a buffer, no buffer or anything. That's just to do the paperwork. Formal notification will be given to all relevant parties, including landowners, occupiers, prescribed government ministers, and we know there's plenty of government departments that will be involved, and relevant statutory authorities. Will be undertaken as part of public exhibition. So when all the paperwork's done, there'll be a public exhibition where anybody can have input, right? They put in their submissions. Public exhibition of the amendment as required under the Planning and Environment. All affected parties and members of the public will have the opportunity to review the documents and make a submission in response to the proposed amendment. So to me, that means anybody and everybody can have their 2 bobs worth. So we as a council actually have very little say. I'm just checking. Can we put a submission in, or do we make comment?
Through you, Mayor, all submissions will be received and equally comments as well.
Right. Yeah, but what about the Shire? Do we put our own comment in?
We provide an assessment of the proposal and submissions. As
So we put in what we think is appropriate. Right. And then there'll be a panel convened. Nothing to do with us, but we'll be part of it. And at the end of the day, whatever happens, the minister, he or she, will make a decision on what happens, whether it stays at 100 metres, goes to 500, or somewhere in between. And I believe buffer zones can be in steps. You can have a 300 metre buffer with regulation, and then another 200 outside of that with different regulations. Is that correct? I don't know what the technical term is, but it can be varied the further away from the industry you are.
Through you, Mayor, and that would be fleshed out during panel.
During panel, yeah. But that's an option for the minister. Okay. So having said that, I implore my fellow councillors to give this due thought and support me in supporting it, so we can put this to bed, so to speak, so there's surety between the people who own the properties and the business.
Excellent, thank you. As the seconder, councillor Ross, do
Well,
you speak?
if it does listen to Jim, he's spot on. We just follow that before. It's in process. It's only a recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Ross. I'll open it up to other councillors to speak for or against this motion. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm speaking for the motion for the sole reason to progress this throughout the process, enabling the opportunity for all interested and impacted parties, as well as experts, to proceed with the formal process with the Minister for Planning, knowing that it will return to Council for further deliberation upon receipt of the required application information from the proponent. I want to make it clear that this isn't a vote for the application as it stands, and I also note if Council choose to vote against this recommendation today, the proponent has the opportunity to apply directly to the state government, meaning Council write our way out of any future decision making, which is a personal concern. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Ryan. Other councillors, councillor Murray.
Through you, Mayor. Honestly, this is one of the hardest decisions I think I've had to make. I always like to put myself in the shoes of all parties concerned. I see a great need to protect industry. Bamstone is wonderful industry. On the other hand, you know, this is family land. This is, you know, intergenerational land that it's for the future of the town, for their kids. So I did grapple with it quite a lot. To councillor Ryan's point, it was confirmed to us that should we vote against this motion today, the applicant can go straight to the minister. And we as a council then waive our rights, is that correct, Mr. McNamara? We lose the ability to deliberate over this further at a future point should we need to. So for that reason, I speak for the motion.
Thank you, councillor Murray. Any other councillors who'd like to speak for or against? Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, similar to everyone's comments, it's been a, really big one to weigh up, but balancing growth and jobs that already exist, 47 families. So in terms of process though, and we've fleshed it out a lot in the agenda briefing, but also now, either way, the buffer needs to be sorted out going forward, whether it's future growth of town, but also to protect the industry that already exists. So this is the fairest and best way to do that. We've asked millions of questions and they've all been answered. We've wrestled with it a lot. So this is, I think, the best process to go forward to get a resolution going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Lockett. So any other councillors wanting to speak for or against the motion? We haven't yet spoken. If not, I'll return to you as the mover of the motion. Councillor Dukas.
No need, no need.
No need.
Thank you, need. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. No need.
Thank you, councillor Dukas. Let's put that to the vote, please. All those in favour? This recommendation of this motion, all those against, it's carried 7-0. Thank you very much. We'll move to item 2.2, Environment and Sustainability Strategy Temporary Advisory Committee. Membership appointments. Staying with you, please, Ms. McNamara.
Thank you, Mayor. The Environment and Sustainability Strategy Temporary Advisory Committee nominations were opened recently. We were overwhelmed with response with quite an enormous amount of applications, which made the selection very difficult. The Environment Sustainability Strategy is a really important document for council to progress, and the advisory committee will form a really important part of that in terms of communication out to their fellow community members and also to have them put into those key points within the strategy. The recommendation is there for you.
Thank you, Ms. McNamara, and it was definitely great to see so much interest in this committee. Okay, queries, questions from councillors? No? If not, yes. Jump in.
Councillors just making me do everything. This committee, from what I read, sort of leans a little bit like it's anti-development in relation to, I suppose, oil, gas, wind farms. It talks here about wind farm exploration, but what about wind farm construction? It's got that little sort of feel about it. Plus, another question would be, why is a 10-year period?
Any questions that you could answer for us, Ms. McNamara? Just wondering if there is terms of reference may not have been formulated.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Dukas. Generally, 10 years for a strategy is an appropriate amount of time. Anything past that may be unachievable, I guess. Certainly always try and pitch towards a reachable time frame, but that can be extended. That's just enough time. In terms of, I guess, the profile of the committee, seek to maintain balance and make sure all views are heard, plus the engagement period of the strategy.
So the committee is around for 2 years, is that correct? I thought I read that somewhere.
Through you, Mayor, it is a temporary committee only for the period of the strategy development.
Right. So that means the consultant's going to be around for that time? I take it on notice. You might as well take on notice how much is it going to cost if we have a consultant for a 2-year period for a strategy. It's could get a little out of hand, that's all I'm thinking. But if you get back to me in the next workshop or something, maybe we could spend 5 minutes giving us a little bit more information on the finer details. I'll be happy with that, thank you.
Thanks, councillor Dukas, and 2 questions taken. Any other questions? There being none, we have got a recommendation there from our officers, and I'm seeking a mover, please, and a seconder. Thank you, councillor Lockett. Councillor Ryan. Councillor Lockett, to you.
Thank you, Tim. I'm just very excited at the calibre of applicants. One, the breadth across the Shire. 2, the expertise. It's very exciting. So really looking forward to getting this committee happening. Hearing, I would hope it's a good point that Councillor Dukas raised with such expertise. We need a consultant because there's some, bona fide gurus on. So looking forward to getting down and doing some great work. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor Lockett. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's wonderful that council are putting an emphasis on environment and sustainability strategy, and it's wonderful that we are engaging our wonderful, knowledgeable, experienced community to help inform that strategy. So I'm very excited for this advisory committee.
Thank you, councillor Ryan. Are there any other councillors who'd like to speak for or against this motion? If not, oh yes.
As long as it's all balanced in the finish.
Oh, balanced perspectives. Yep.
Balanced. Yep. Not just.
Thank you, councillor Ross. I'll come back to you as the mover to sum up, please, councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mayor, for the
Let's get back to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried 7-0. Item 2.3, Moyne and Mortlake strategy, and I'll invite our acting director of assets and community, Simone Robinson, to please present this to us.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, we present the Moyne and Mortlake Youth Strategy 2025 to 2030. It's a comprehensive youth-driven plan designed to support young people aged 12 to 25 in our region. The strategy was developed through extensive consultation with over 660 young people, and it identifies key challenges, opportunities, ensuring our local youth have access to the spaces, services and support they need to thrive. And the recommendation is provided for councillors.
Thank you, Ms Robinson. Do we have questions? We're all very familiar with this as has been updated along. Are there any questions? Councillor
Yeah, thank you. A definition for neurodivergent.
Ms Robinson, are you able to provide that definition, please?
Through the Mayor.
No, that doesn't matter. Take it on notice. It's a bit difficult to put you on the spot on that one.
So neurodivergency is any person that is, I guess,
Thinks outside the square.
potentially.
I did look it up. I just thought I'd throw it in there. Set you up in your head up. Sit up. That's all. No.
Councillor Lockett.
I can send you books and pages and on this if you like, Councillor Dukas. It's a field that I'm interested in. If you want to get chat to you for hours
That's a
about
good
it.
idea. Okay, any questions per se, any real ones?
Well, that was a real one. I was going to ask too, do you identify as any of the following? There's a whole list there. And the biggest one is none of the above. So is that just what you would call an Aussie? Just a normal knock around Aussie type of person?
Through the Mayor, thank you for the question. I think that what that is referring to is people who are electing not to provide, whether they're female or male or prefer to be.
Yeah, you're not going to
non-binary.
tell us. Is that it? Fair enough. No, that's good. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? If not, we do have a officer recommendation there that we adopt the draft Moyne and Mortlake strategy 2025 to 30. Seeking a mover, please. Thank you, councillor Murray, and seconded councillor Ryan. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm really excited about this. Our young people, I mean, the studies, the extensive consultation, it's so needed. And I'm really excited to see this finally get adopted. And I've spoken about it in workshops before, and I'll bring it up again. Councillors, it's page 201 of our agendas. My favourite part, I think, about all of this is the actual actions are listed in the strategy with timings, how it's going to be resourced, and the responsibility. I think that's really, really amazing. And it's a tangible way that we can actually keep this on track. And I'm just really excited about it. So thank you to the officers for getting it to this point.
Thanks, Councillor Murray. Councillor Ryan is the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. I resonate completely with Councillor Murray, and I also just want to add that our young people are our future, and we want to equip them for success. And this strategy most certainly does that through what they've told us they want. And I'd also like to state that we are stronger when we're working together. So it's wonderful to have a strategy like this in conjunction with Mortlake City Council, if they choose to endorse as well.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Okay, I'll open it up to the rest of the council team. Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Yeah, agree with Councillor Murray and Councillor Ryan's comments. The amount of consultation is phenomenal. It's, the officers should really hold their heads very high. The amount of consultation, conversations online, the work is phenomenal, and there's really good, as Councillor Murray, he said, the action plan, there's direct outcomes. The youth are the future of today, so that's that, and tomorrow. So really, really well done to the officers and our consultants. They're really great too. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lockett. Any other councillors who want to speak forward?
Clarification, please.
Councillor Dukas.
Under financial, it talks about 96% of the youth budget is externally funded. Does that include wages?
Are you able to respond to that one, Mr. Johnson? Yeah, thank you.
So through you, Mayor, no, the wages of our council youth officer, our next gen development officer, is paid by council budget.
Thank you, Ms. Anderton. That's some clarification.
So we had one in the past. And it's just a follow on.
So again, through you, yes, we've had council has funded a youth officer for a period greater than 10 years.
We funded at one stage, but fair enough. So all that money, the 96%. So the other 4% wouldn't be the wages, would it? So the other 4% is that Warrnambool City and Moyne would have to tip in.
Through you, yes, there are some components of additional budget that is already included in council's operational program, and those extra programming ideas and opportunities would be funded either through council budget or additional grants that council officers would seek. And examples of that in the past has been, Vic Health funding that we've applied for and been successful in receiving for, say, the Fuse program. So there is a small component that is operational for that council supplement expenditure with, as well as wages, but then other components would be from a grant perspective.
So 180 from Freezer Engage Fund and 120 from the Freezer Fund reads like that money's already been allocated to something. Is that correct?
So through you there, that funding that you're talking about, that's a 3-year funding program that commenced on the 1st of January that council received, and it will extend through in a calendar year to December 2028. 27, excuse me, sorry. So it's a 3-year program. The funding that is in there, yes, we will be using this youth strategy to determine, to be able to implement the programs that are in it. And in seeking funding, we were identifying in our application the types of projects that we would be using that funding for.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors wanting to speak for or against the motion? Or I return to councillor Murray as the mover of the motion. Further need. Okay, let's put that to the vote. All those,
Mine was clarification, or
we were
have
actually,
you all had discussion on it? You've done all that? Oh, fair enough
do
then.
you want to speak for or against the motion?
You're probably leaning against it because the age difference for a start. And some of the submissions, well, all the ones I read all mentioned mental health. But you're talking about 12 to 24-year-olds. And I spoke to a lot of people I know, 16, 18-year-olds who have a total different outlook on life than the 20-year-olds that I know. And I won't say what some of the 20-year-olds say because, you know, they think they're grown up and they're working and, you know, all they worried about is chasing girls and washing utes. That's it. So I do have an issue with the way the youth strategy goes from 12 to 24. I think something needs to be different. Maybe we need two, one a youth and one a young adult or something. But, you know, the 12-year-olds, some of them are in, I think, grade 6 in state school. There's a big difference. And I don't know if the strategy engages all of them, whether this, what is it, freezer is one and engage the other. What does engage actually do? What do you mean by engage? There's a heap of money in engage. What's that do? Somebody tell me?
We have passed the time for questions. Did have opportunity for those before. But I will allow, if you're happy to answer that, Ms Anderton, just to help clarify Councillor Lucas's thinking.
So the two streams of funding through you, Mayor, that you're referring to, Councillor Dukas, one is the Engage program. That is a state level program that looks at assisting young people with leadership, mentoring, professional development. It looks at building their skill base to go into the world and be citizens we want to supporting further on. Freezer funding is a funding program that looks at the creative space and looks at promoting young people in activities that create them opportunities to express themselves musically in all fields of creativity, music, performance, writing. So both of the funding programs are about making people can be.
So to me, doesn't that mean that it only goes to a certain age level? So the 20-year-old and the 20-year-old that goes to work every day, what do they get out of it? Because they're incorporated in this document.
Again, we have had time for questions, but I will allow this.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, but this is where we get to ask questions.
Well,
Thank you, Mayor.
I did give you the opportunity earlier, but Ms Anderton, go ahead.
So again, the strategy directs itself at young people 12 to 25. The 20-year-old that you might refer to has opportunities might be working on a ute somewhere, but also likes to do gigs in a cafe because they love being creative. It provides opportunities for that tradie to express themselves creatively, as an example. There's many specifics I could go into, but it's probably not the place. I guess we'll back to you, Councillor Dukas, if
No,
that's
that's
something
okay.
you'd like to hear.
And one more is, I read that they're getting paid. Is that correct?
Again, through you, that is correct. We're looking at establishing a youth advisory board. That's one of the recommendations within the strategy. And to ensure that we get participation in today's world where young people have so many competing interests with their part-time work, study, or even full-time work if they're working, it is a way of respecting their contribution and ensuring that they come and participate, and that we have them there to be able to review our strategic directions, etc.
So how much do they get paid? Because there's nothing in this, no documentation or figures or anything.
Senator, and we will draw the questions to a close now.
So that is an operational question that you're asking. The budgets specifically are not incorporated into the strategy. However, as I said, from a youth perspective, the fees that we would look at are consistent with fees for young people of that age, and it would go across the board. So that'll be something that we'll be working with Warrnambool City Council as a part of our youth advisory board.
So we don't know what we're paying them. I'm a bit disappointed on that, because in here it talks about them being paid. And I know you said it's operational, but it's not operational. As a councillor, I'd like to know how much they're getting paid and what they're getting paid for. I mean, that's a fair question, because at the end of the day, taxpayers' money.
Okay, well, we've heard your perspective, Councillor Dukas. Final call for any councillor who'd like to speak for or against the motion. Councillor Murray, as the mover, would you like to sum up in any way?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I would just like to highlight that youth is identified by the government as a person 12 to 25. I believe that's why the age range is 12 to 25. And this strategy is going to inform the work of council staff. The council staff can tailor the delivery of these things to suit the age group, to suit the young people in our community. So again, I'm more than happy to speak on this behalf. I'm really excited about it.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. We will now put this to the vote. All those in favour, please, item 2.3. All those in favour is Councillor Taylor, Councillor Ryan, Councillor Lockett, Councillor Foster, Councillor Murray, Councillor Ross. All those against, Councillor Dukas. Thank you. The motion is passed 6-1. We move to item 2.4, which is state of the assets report. And I'll again refer to our acting director of assets, Ms. Robinson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, the state of the asset report 2024 provides a comprehensive assessment of council's infrastructure assets, evaluating their condition, value and future management needs. Council adopted the asset plan and asset management plan in June 2022. Development of both of those plans involved community consultation and sought feedback via submissions from community and stakeholders during the 2022 year, which were considered in development of the final asset plan and asset management plan. The State of the Assets report provides an update on progress to date in line with the Act, and the recommendations provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Questions? Any councillors? Questions? If not, I'll just give you extra time, Councillor Dukas. You'll like flicking through. Do you have any questions?
No, I'm going easy on this because I'm just being a good fellow right now at the moment.
As you always are. Thank you, Councillor
Thank
Dukas.
you.
Okay, if there are no questions, we do have a recommendation before us, and I'm seeking a mover and seconder.
Yeah.
Councillor Dukas, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Dukas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could just about say it's a one of those reports that we really have to do. The work in progress. We've got to keep an eye on things. I'm being a little lackadaisical here, but it really is an important report because that's where all the money's going. And at this point in time, we're very, very stringent with our money at the Moyne Shire. We're not flush with funds, etc. We've got some big projects that need financing one way or another. And to have this report and to make sure that not only the councillors, but the staff keep an eye on it, you know, get a regular update on how we're going and our progresses, you know, with our assets. We've got a handle on the roads. We know what needs to be done there, but there are other little projects, especially in buildings, that sometimes get overlooked. one that comes to mind is the Naringal Hall. You know, they were waiting on the roof repair and they're still waiting. And I was there the other day taught how to handle myself if I get bit by a snake. But it just rusted through and it gone down the wall and the walls all fallen to pieces. So something fell apart between when it was reported that the roof needed fixing up to today, nothing's happened. So hopefully through this state of the assets report, we can streamline that process before the damage goes from a little to a lot. So I hope someone's taken on notice that the Naringal Hall roof needs a good patch up as immediately, because we've got a lot of rain coming.
So Councillor Duke, Councillor Murray is the second through you, Mayor.
This is really important report. I think it's no secret we're in a pretty harsh economic environment, and as councils we have a real obligation to ensure that we do what we can and we forward plan about how to be reducing the renewal gap of our assets. So I'm really happy to support this. I think it's a really key report for us to use, particularly as we start moving into considering the budget, our upcoming budget process. So
thank you very much, Councillor Murray. I'll open it up for other councillors who'd like to speak for or against the motion. Councillor Lockett.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Find something that I think I'll have to give up
Okay.
my notes, but I'm like, yes, I'll speak for the report and just want to acknowledge the power of work that officers have done with this report. Like, you know, it's a massive document, but the amount of, you know, I once did a stock take at toilet log and that was intense. This is next level. This is for the whole Shire of Moyne. I was done in a few hours doing that, but like there's, you know, the roads, the bridges, the footpaths, like that's just naming a few, and open spaces, recreation buildings. As Councillor Duke said, there's snakes flowing in this door, the roads, and it's massive. So there's a heap of work, and I really appreciate that work, and that will, you know, it's definitely not going to be a document that sits on the shelf and doesn't get used. It's, you know, going to be used very regularly. So will be very helpful. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Lockett. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm speaking for the motion, and I just want to say that the report is a stark reality of where our assets are at, and that we need to place a priority on the need of our existing assets and not our new assets. So that definitely needs to be front of mind through our budget processes over the next little bit of time.
No further comments. I'll come back to you, Councillor Duke.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thanks. Well, you can't overstate the need to keep an eye on your assets, whether it's your own assets at home or the ones that belong to the Shire. I suppose the ones that belong to the Shire are more important because that's what we were elected to do. And hopefully going forward that with prudent management, we can maintain our assets and probably improve on it, so we don't fall below that 100% renewal gap.
Thanks, Councillor Dukas. We'll now put that to the vote. Item 2.4. All those in favour, thank you. And it's carried 7-0. Moving to item 2.5, Council Representative for the Victorian Local Governments Association, and I'll ask our Director of Corporate and Governance, Mr. Small, to introduce this one to us.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, the council is a member of the Victorian Local Government Association, and as our members, they requested that we have a councillor representative appointed to that committee, and also they've asked if we want to have someone to represent them or work on their working group associated with gambling. And 2 councillors have put their hands up to take up these roles, and the recommendation outlines that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Questions? Councillors? We will assume that Councillor Murray and Councillor Lockett are happy to proceed as discussed before, in which case I'll then seek a mover for this recommendation, please. Okay. Yep, thank you, Councillor Taylor, and seconded Councillor Ryan. Councillor Taylor.
I think, yeah, it's important to have these representatives on the VLGO, so happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Ryan.
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other councillor who'd like to speak for or against? not, I'll come back to you, councillor Taylor, as a new. Sure. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried 7-0. Thanks, councillors. Item 2.6 is the monthly finance report. And again, I'll ask our Director of Corporate and Governance, Mr. Small, to tell us all about this one.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, this is our regular fund report with a few more less unusual things in it. Firstly, because it's a summary of the first 6 months of operation for the year, we have looked quite closely at the variances that we expect to see by the end of the financial year. I'll come back to that in a minute. Secondly, we are requesting the council to consider a budget variation of $100,000 in order for us to replace the shell of the MacArthur swimming pool. That request is not included in the financial numbers in the associated with the report. And finally, it's what I mentioned that we're required to recommend to council every year, like CEOs, to make a statement whether or not we need to have a revised budget. And this report is saying we do not need a revised budget at this stage, in his opinion, which I totally support. So I'll just take another minute of your time to talk about the finance report, if I could. The situation is looking reasonably sound. Draw your attention to page 267, and there's 3 areas I want to talk about: the operating surplus for the year to date and for the full year forecast, and also the underlying surplus for the full year forecast. So the operating surplus year to date is showing a small improvement over the previous month, and that's the budget, and that's quite satisfactory. So year to date, we're tracking well. In relation to the year-end forecast for the operating deficit, in other words, the profit and loss result, we are expecting again it to be favourable to last month and favourable to the budget. So we budgeted over $6.2 million surplus for the year. We're looking at running at a $9.3 million surplus for the year. That's a good result. But more interestingly is that the state government requires us to have what they call an underlying surplus every year, which is when you take out your non-capital grants to make sure you still actually break even. And we budgeted to break even to a tune of $748,000 this year. And this is the line across the middle of the table. And to date, we've been running at a expected deficit of $420,000 for the year. So we're $420,000 shy of breaking even. But with the forecast variances we've looked at over the last month, we now believe we're going to scrape home with a small surplus of $11,000, which I think is a very good result. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Small. Councillors, do we have questions? Questions? There being none, you've got no, you're looking at no. Councillor Davis, if there be none, I will call for a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Ross and seconded by Councillor Taylor. Councillor Ross, over to you.
I'd like to thank Mr. Small for doing all the figures and a good news story about MacArthur swimming pool, kicking goals, a new liner, moving forward, and a good management.
It's a great pool. Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Taylor. Thank you. Any other councillor who would like to speak for or against this motion? No. Coming back to you, Councillor Ross, would you like to say anything further? Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried 7-0. Item 3.1 is the Mayor and Councillor activities, which are presented for you there. Does anyone have any questions or any commentary they'd like to make around this busy month? If not, we will go to item 3.2, council notice of motion. There are none this month. Item 3.3, general matters. Do any councillors have any items they'd like to raise? Councillor Murray?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Let me get my brain on.
Just feeling.
I want to give a shout out to 7th to 10th of March, the Port Fairy Folk Festival is starting. There's buzz around Port Fairy already. It's such an exciting time of year. The tents are starting to go up. I note that the Shebeen tent, for anyone that has frequented Folkie, seems to be nearly triple in size this year. So going to be a bit of fun. But you know, it is a really exciting time of year. I believe there are still tickets available for anyone who feels like they've missed the boat, but even just for the street, the economic benefit to the town, it's amazing. And I just really want to thank the absolute army of volunteers that pulled together to make this event happen. I also wanted to highlight on this coming Friday at Charlie's on East in Port Fairy, Moyne Shire are holding their Inspirational Women of Moyne Awards. Did I get that right? Inspiring Women of Moyne Awards. It's a free event, so if you jump on the Moyne Shire Facebook socials, you'll be able to find a link and you can register to attend the event. I think it's always wonderful to celebrate women, isn't it, Councillor Dukas?
Is it ever? I really couldn't live without them.
You couldn't. None of us could. And finally, I just want to give a shout out to the Moyne Shire caravan parks across the Shire. There's some information within the CEO activities report and parts of this agenda that speak to what a sort of bumper season they've had. And there's, you know, while we're all on holidays and having Christmas breaks and things like that, there's a huge amount of people that are servicing everyone else while they're on their holidays. So I just want to thank all of them and yeah, hope bigger and better next year.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Other items for general business? Yeah, Councillor Dukas.
The biggest show on earth was that Koroit show. New features, new date, new weather, new everything. It was a real classical event, terrific. A little bit disappointing for the children because a couple of the children's played stuff, etc., pulled out on the day because of the heat. But besides that, it was really good. They did a great job, and I think next year you'll find that it'll be bigger and better still because some of the exhibitors were asking for a little bit more time. You know, they showed up on their Friday, they had Saturday and had to go, but they're looking now to maybe have an extra half a day or something like that. And I reckon the $5 for 10 to 15-year-olds might disappear. So well done to the organising committee, really good.
Thanks, Councillor Dukas. Other general matters?
Thank you, Mayor. Love general matters. Just wanted to do a shout out to the Port Fairy Jazz Festival. It was on the 7th to the 9th of February. The committee, the volunteers, the performers, it was a really well attended event. I believe it was up on last year. Again, it was good, so happy days. It was, you know, it's a great little festival that's growing. And again, the army of volunteers that helped make that is phenomenal. Also a shout out to the Port Fairy Marathon. There was 2,500 runners over, so it's the 4th biggest in Victoria. There was over 150 volunteers. Again, the positivity in the town, the economic development from it, the flow-on effect as a fundraiser for the school that started. It's, 4th biggest in Victoria, so it's going from strength to strength. It was, it was a fantastic event. Go to the Folkie if you've never been. Get them around.
Thank you, Councillor Lockett. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to recognise Council's efforts in conjunction with a private provider in relation to the Garlock childcare and kindergarten soft opening. It was great to attend with Mayor Foster and it was a great opportunity to see the facility, meet some local families who have already and will be enrolling their children. I want to recognise previous councillor Daniel Mead's efforts in getting this on the radar and met all those years ago, and it's wonderful to see it come to fruition. And I just want to recognise that Moyne Shire is in a childcare desert, which means we are a populated area where there is more than 3 children per available childcare place. So it's great to see the Shire contributing to improvements in this area.
I'll say thank you, Councillor Ryan. Any other items? Yep, Councillor Dukas.
Thank you. Right. The Ringle Hall, I was meeting a constituent down the Ringle Way and he told me to meet him at the hall. It just happened to be that I think it was Southwest Health between Warrnambool and they got a branch in Camperdown, to do Camperdown. Anyway, the young ladies there were terrific and they were doing or teaching, training, etc., what to do if you get bit by a snake and resuscitation. So they had the dummies on the ground, not someone like me to pretend. But it was well attended, really good. So congratulations to them. I did have an email number for people that are interested, because they will travel throughout the Shire. So if any other community groups want to hold one, I don't know what, I suppose just ring me and I'll find that email address that they can contact, or I suppose get hold of Southwest Healthcare or someone. But it was terrific, really good. Yeah, farmers there, their wives, husbands, wives, kids, the whole lot, all about bandaging yourself after snake bite and doing X, Y, and Z. I see Mr. Tyers there in the crowd. He could teach us a thing or two about snake bites. Well experienced gentleman from the Ringle.
Thank you, councillor Dukas. Any other matters of general matters? Any other matters of interest? No, if not, we'll go to item 3.4, which is urgent business. And do we have councillor Murray?
Through you, Mayor. I wish to raise an urgent matter that I consider extremely urgent. It relates to moving motions in order to submit to as motions for the May 2025 state meeting. The reason for the urgency and why it wasn't brought into this agenda, it's my understanding that it was just an error in dates and they've moved the date forward. So were we not to decide on this today, we actually would miss our opportunity to submit a motion to the Municipal Association of Victoria. And I would like to identify the 3 points, which are the motions that we are seeking to submit to the MAB. Item 1 being the Emergency Services and Volunteer Fund levy. Item 2, roads and bridge funding. And item 3 is cost shifting. Again, the reason for urgency, it was not possible for this to be included in the agenda due to officer oversight, recognising that timing of dates for submission of motions to the MAB due on March 17th, as identified in the guidance notes on MAB submissions provided to council, is after the time allowed for inclusion in the February council meeting agenda. So I would like for that to be heard today so that we don't miss our opportunity.
So am I right in understanding you'd like to move a motion that we resolve to hear a motion? Is that essentially right?
Thank you. And the motion would be that council resolve that the motion to submit motions to the MAB State Council for the May 2025 meeting be considered today as an urgent matter.
You're happy to move that?
Happy to move that.
Thank you, councillor Murray. I've seen seconded for that. Thank you, councillor Lockett. Now, councillor Murray, he has spoken to this, but is there anything further?
Nothing further, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Lockett? No, okay. Then we will put that to the vote. Is this urgent business? That is carried 7-0. Thank you. Have now decided this is urgent. Councillor Murray, would you like to lead us through the next part of this?
Well, thank you through you, Mayor. Councillors, I'm going to read through the worded motion that I'm proposing. That council submit the following motions to the May 2025 meeting of the Municipal Association of Victoria State Council. A, that the MAB request the Victorian Government to reassess the emergency services and volunteer levy model to ensure it is equitable and does not disproportionately burden rural communities, including shifting the responsibilities for levy collection to state government and compensate council for administrative costs where collection duties remain delegated to councils. Part B, that the MAB State Council call on the Victorian Government to 1, allocate additional funding specifically for the maintenance and renewal of bridges in regional councils, recognising the disproportionate financial burden on these councils as bridges meeting end of life and in regards to the cost of repair and replacement as disproportional to the rural small-sized council ratepayer population. Or 2, create a dedicated grant program or reinstate a similar program to the Historic Country Roads and Bridges program for bridge maintenance and renewal. Or 3, allocate a specific proportion of existing road safety funding to the purpose of bridge maintenance or renewals, where councils with extensive road and bridge networks and low ratepayer bases receive priority. And item C, that the MAB call on the Victorian Government to request no further decisions that shift additional cost onto local government until such time as the government responds to the report from the inquiry into local government funding and services, and with that, address fundamental concerns outlined within the report.
Well spoken, thank you, councillor Murray. Okay, so this is a collective motion of 3 reports, so you're happy to move that?
Happy to move as a collective.
Thank you. Seeking a seconder? Councillor Ryan, thank you. Councillor Murray, is there anything further you'd like to?
I think I've said it. Thank you.
Councillor Ryan, would you like to speak to this motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that those 3 areas are definitely aligned with Moyne's priorities at the moment, and I support this motion.
Councillor Ryan. Other councillors, will you speak for or
And I
against?
speak against it because I think that they're all different. And with the first motion, if we call it the first motion, with emergency services and volunteer fund, it talks about disproportionately burdened rural communities, including shifting the responsibilities for levy collection to state government and compensate council for administration costs, where we collect. So either we're going to shift, get out of it, or we're going to collect it. We haven't bob each way here. Doesn't make sense to me. I would like to see no collection by council at all. And if we're forced to, by the state government to collect, it should be a separate line item on our rate notices, not just incorporated, so people know what's levy and what isn't. And if they choose not to pay, they can. But as it is now, there is, you either pay everything or you don't. There's no way of differentiating what's levy and what isn't.
Thank you, councillor Dukes. Thank you. Any other councillors who would like to speak for or against this motion? Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to speak for the motion, and I'm flabbergasted why councillor Dugas wouldn't bring this up earlier in the agenda briefing. You could have talked about it more. Thank you.
Okay. Any other councillors wanting to speak for or against? I'll come back to you, councillor.
So, Madam.
Just Mayor is fine.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So is it possible to move and second it to, they're happy to move, not move a separate motion, but to leave the administration costs out or something like that? Because I am endorse the motion, but I don't think we should say one, government collects, but if you don't collect it, we're going to continue to collect it, but you want to pay us. Well, they pay us anyway. So really it's a weak argument. I'd like to say that we hand it back to the state government.
So, councillor Murray, it's your motion, effectively, and councillor Ryan.
Would you want to through you, Mayor? I'm happy to progress with this. We are asking for these motions to be submitted as a motion to the MAB. There is every possibility that they will be changed, that they may not even progress up to the MAB as motions. So I am happy to keep them as it exists.
Okay, currently. Okay. All right. So any other councillors wanting to speak for or against? If not, any final, do you want to sum up?
No, nothing further. Thank you.
Let's put that to the vote there. All those in favour of the motion before us, that is carried 7-0. Thank you. And just as a closing statement, perhaps Councillor Dukes could formulate a separate advocacy position for council.
Well, maybe the other councillors on the same page as us might have something along those lines. And I'm not going to vote against it, something like that. I mean, it's got to get to the MAB no matter what.
Thanks, Councillor Dukes. If there's nothing further there, we'll move to 5, which is the CEO activities report and meeting schedule. Mr. Epstein, our CEO.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'd like to start with a shout out to our really hardworking team who just got through this period, and in a place like Moyne Shire, this is a really peak period throughout the year for many of our team. Whether you're in early years or aged care services, our visitor centres, of course, outdoor places, roads, working on our projects, our outdoor spaces, and of course our team in support roles in our office areas. So lots of hardworking people, but a really busy period of the year, and probably no more so than for our events and festivals team, who've been working really, really hard to support others in the community, working together to put on really great events across the Shire, week in, week out. And of course, our caravan team who really have gone out of their way this year. I'll come back to that in a minute, but I just wanted to start with a shout out to the team and the really great work that they're all doing. To then move on to our finances. As Mr. Small described, really pleasing to see our forecast for 24-25 now looking to be in the black. I'd like to acknowledge the team that have worked diligently over the last few weeks to work through our numbers and really find a pathway there. And obviously some important assumptions behind that we need to deliver on, but it's great to see that we now anticipate to be in the black this year and solidly ahead of our budget in an underlying perspective. So an important part of that is our financial control and governance, and lots of people involved in that across our team, and of course into councillors and places like our risk and audit committee that will make that happen. So an acknowledgement to everyone involved there. Our wages, which is our highest expense, I'm also pleased to say and report that is sitting on budget and being well controlled, and that's a really important element that's producing these results that we've seen. And also importantly, our CapEx project delivery is also on track for another strong year on the back of a really good result last year. So finally, on finances, a call out to our rates and arrears that are now declining. So that's been something that's been spoken about in past council meetings, and something that I guess does certainly indicate the impact on our community with the drought conditions that we've been seeing, and also the cost of living pressures on people. So I'd like to acknowledge folks that have been getting to those rate notices for us and getting those payments made. I will say, though, we are still about 70% up, or about $700,000 higher than 2 years ago. So we are still a far cry from where that has sat in prior periods. So we will be working with folks on trying to get that back to a more stable position. Then moving on to our roads and bridges, which is obviously extremely important for us right across Moyne. So our progress is really solid at the moment. Our reseal annual program sitting at about 40% at the end of January, and it's kind of right where we need it to be. So with the favourable weather conditions for road making, that really sets us up to complete the year as planned. We're also interacting with our state counterparts at the Department of Transport and Planning, so we do have regular meetings with them, and that has occurred in the last month. And that's really the engagement between local and state government to make sure that we are communicating, we are understanding what each body's working on. We do have a lot of kilometres of DTP roads across Moyne, so it's really important that we're working together and understanding where the need is for the community on roads. And lastly, on bridges, our Gibb Street Bridge in Port Fairy, the need to replace that. We've moved forward with another submission to the Federal Safer Local Roads and Infrastructure Program. So we're very hopeful with that submission that will give us the quite significant funding needed to replace that bridge. Next on early years, so as Councillor Ryan mentioned, really pleased to see Rouge Childcare and Kindergarten in Garbock open up. And just more broadly for Moyne Shire, what that means is that facility opening will expand our early years placements by about 10% for the Shire. So that's a really important step forward, but there's a lot more to do. But it's probably one of the first forward steps in any material way for quite some time with places. So we're really looking forward to working with the Roots management team on further opportunities across the Shire, and then of course in our own facilities as well. So we're continuing to hire new team members to continue to boost our capacity. On our summer peak, some great news was our nights stays in our caravan parks were up year on year. So our team have worked really hard to bring home that result. And also our bookings ahead for the Folk Festival are looking really strong as well. We've had great feedback from nearly 300 people that have stayed with us, and really grateful for a 96% satisfaction score. So that's really high. And in particular, what's been called out is our friendly staff and the cleaning of our amenities. They are two things that we've invested heavily in this year, and we're really grateful to our team that have delivered that, and we hope to see lots of those visitors back next year, or maybe even earlier in the year ahead. Our work and play program, so we did have 7 Port Fairy businesses engage with that. They took 15 workers into that accommodation available in Port Fairy. It is down about 30% year on year, but that's an indication of more workers available in the Shire, which is another kind of good story. So that's great to see for local business that they're able to access more workers locally to meet that peak demand. Our worker accommodation in Croydon and Mortlake is really steady in terms of bookings there as well. So certainly lots of businesses are accessing that accommodation there. In our planning, we have made some team structure changes. We now have a dedicated planning and communication coordinator. So we're really excited to introduce that new role into our team. And a big part of that role is enhancing how we engage with applicants and other people working with us on planning applications. And very much part of our goal to be kind of easy to do business with when it's all said and done when it comes to planning applications. So we very much acknowledge the feedback that we get and the opportunities around planning, and this is a big step towards enhancing what we do there. Our council plan, so I'd like to thank lots in our community right across Moyne for their really valuable feedback and contributions in many listening posts that have occurred, workshops over weekends that have also happened, and of course our surveys. So we're now collating all of that information into our council plan process, and there'll be further feedback loops to those that have been engaging with us on the council plan in coming weeks. So we really look forward to those further opportunities as we bring that plan together. Our council plan at this stage will come together through the mid part of the year. And lastly, with communication, just to acknowledge that we are now looking at further opportunities to expand how we communicate and get our reach across the Moyne Shire. So, for instance, right now we have our landscape design feedback out for the Market Square in Mortlake. So we will turn, in addition to things we already do with communication, we will turn to publications like the Mortlake Dispatch and the Lions newsletter to help get that message more broadly out there. And we'll do the same thing with further important activity that we're doing right across communities in Moyne. So we'll be very mindful of that moving forward. And this will be one of the first initiatives in that space. So a bit happening in communication to enhance what we're doing there as well. And that's it for now. Thank you. So happy for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Evans, for that comprehensive report. What's happening? Any questions? Our CEO?
Oh, there's got to be one there. Come on, guys and girls. Mr. CEO, good to see you back. Community Assistance Fund. So if there's only 60,000 available, must be round 2. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor. Yeah, I think that's going out at the moment. I've seen that published. Yes.
So when does it must start early in the new year? The first round is the $200,000
First round.
of Community Assistance Fund. So it'll be due again July this year.
Correct.
Yeah. So when people see 60,000, don't panic. The round 1 will start in the new financial year, which is 25-26. All right. Thank you for that. So, but there's 60 there for anybody who's got a little project that they want to tap into. Lucas Benevolent Fund or something. But you laugh at it.
Do you have any further questions, Councillor Dukas?
Oh, no. Well, give someone else a go, please.
Seem like there are any other questions for the CEO. Thank you, Mr. Everstein. So I'm now going to call for a motion to suspend standing orders so that we can consider the confidential agenda. Thank you. Councillor Lockett and seconder. Councillor Taylor, thank you. All those in favour? It's carried 7-0, and thank you to those who have been watching along in the gallery. And Recess. Yeah, let's